Holy shit! One of these things is finally good enough! Seriously though, folks, it's really only now just hitting me just where the punishing horribleness of the DC Extended Universe movies up to this point have led us to. Namely, the point where the barest minimum expectation of a releasable feature film being met feels like a series of miraculous achievements. Oh my stars! A recognizable 3-act structure! Saints be praised! Cinematography that doesn't look like high-contrast diarrhea! Holy Mary, Mother of God! Dialogue that sounds like it was written and spoken by people who've heard a human conversation before! Fuck me sideways! I can tell what's meant to be going on in well over half the scenes. Sorry, I really had to get that out of my system. Now, I put that shit in the preface for a reason. I do think it needs to be acknowledged for posterity that a lot of the reason that Wonder Woman being a pretty damn good movie feels not just agreeable but downright cathartic is that it's been forced to shoulder the cultural ballast of a preceding franchise that's thus far been one of the film industry's great slow-motion disasters of the recent age. Which is unfair both because the mass ubiquity of the franchise era injures the ability of the film to stand on its own and because it forces the question of whether or not it feels like a good movie entirely on its own merits, or if it has at least some of the advantage of being the prequel, sequel, successor, whatever to one of the worst crimes ever committed against the art of filmmaking. But then again, it's not like this character wasn't already straining under the weight of expectations as the first major female-fronted superhero movie, the vanguard for women in an entire genre, decades on decades of feminist interpretation and reinterpretation, so maybe it's not entirely inappropriate that Wonder Woman the movie is straining against the push-pull of being an individual and a standard bearer every bit as much as Wonder Woman the character always has. For the record though, simply calling this better than the other 3 DCEU movies doesn't do it justice. Everything is better than the other 3 DCEU movies. Wonder Woman is a legitimately good movie all on its own. It's not a perfect one, it's not a game changer, but an absolutely solid superhero movie that occasionally flirts with greatness while sprinting through an overall pretty interesting story in terms of broader pop cultural import that more than delivers in what may be its most important mission, delivering a handful of showstopper action sequences wherein women, very possibly young girls in particular, who enjoy superhero movies finally get to see a few built around someone a little more like themselves. And while that kind of means that conventionality, for lack of a better word, is kind of the point, i.e. Wonder Woman succeeding in action scenes that would have been right at home in the Captain America or Thor movies as the genre equivalent of gender integrating a previously all-male vocation, it also throws in some agreeably novel imagery, like an entire army detachment of men with guns being taken down by women on horseback fighting with medieval weaponry, and a whole lot of fun business with that magic lasso. So the focus here is spectacle and hero shots, but the basic narrative? Actually not that bad. It's a slightly tweaked riff on the traditional Wonder Woman origin story wherein Chris Pine's allied soldier Steve Trevor crash lands on the Amazon's secret magical all-female island following a spy mission targeting the evil Dr. Poison, and Diana ends up insisted on following him back to man's world after rescuing him to join the war effort. The main difference being this time, instead of ideological ambassadorship, Wonder Woman believes that the global conflict is being puppeteered by Ares, the god of war, and apparently the Amazons exist in the first place to kick his ass specifically, and it's World War I instead of World War II, because the thematic side of the story is going for an all war is bad, there's good and evil, gray moral complexity on all sides kind of message, and that's a lot easier to do when there's no Nazis in the mix. That thematic side, though, is where the film actually finds a certain amount of depth. Not a tremendous amount, since, refreshingly, this is the first DC movie in forever that seems to embrace and understand the inescapable fact that the majority of these characters were fundamentally created for children, but it's more thoughtful than you might expect. The whole setup is very much grounded in original creator William Moulton Marston's original idea of a uniquely female version of strength being the curative for wars and violence brought about by men, just without being so explicit. Wonder Woman and the Amazons, we're told, exists specifically to thwart the machinations and minions of a male god of war, and all but one of the evil and or morally compromised folks in the film are men, so it's there if you're looking for it, just not super blunt. But what the film elects to do with that setup is give Diana a fairly different sort of character arc as these things go, where she has to start out with a very noble, optimistic ideal of what she's meant to be doing, why she's meant to do it, and what should happen if she does, lose that idealism upon realizing that man's world and human beings in general are actually kind of complicated and shitty and disappointing, but then overcome that disappointment, grow as a person, and do the right thing anyway. That's different. But unfortunately, since the film is also trying to fit a complete origin story and a here's all the cool stuff Wonder Woman can do highlight reel into just one movie, something has to give, and something ends up meaning the dissolution disillusionment and comeback arc that might have been more impactful spread out across the second and third acts instead gets compressed into a handful of scenes built around a last-minute twist that's really kind of easy to see coming. In this respect, it resembles nothing so much as the Phase 1 Marvel movies. Yes, in the sense that it's almost scene for scene the first Captain America crossed with the first Thor, but mainly in that it laser focuses on introducing and getting you invested in the title hero, and as a result, the rest of it is narrow-scaled and sort of runs out of gas for the perfunctory, underwhelming final battle against a disposable villain you don't really care about. Also, all the mythology stuff with the Amazons is over way too quickly. It was compelling, and I wanted to see more of it. But the important stuff works, and you have to give a lot of that to Gal Gadot. I still have no earthly idea whether or not this person is a good actress or not, or if it's just more a matter of a genuinely strange, unique default screen presence that just really works in this role, but yeah, shit, it really works in this role. She gets some help, the rest of the cast is pretty game. Elena Anaya and Danny Houston do what they can in largely thankless bad guy roles, and collapsing a love interest and snarky comic relief sidekick into one character is pretty much the perfect use of Chris Pine. But ironically, the only reason you can't also call this very good movie a star-making turn for her is that the star-making already happened when she stole that otherwise bad movie last year. Like I said, it's not really possible to fully divorce Wonder Woman from the fact that its simple existence feels like a big revolutionary event in and of itself. And maybe that's okay, but it delivers where it counts, and it already plays like a high watermark for this summer. The genre comparison thing is always kind of gauche and silly to me, but suffice it to say, it's not quite Richard Donner's Superman or the Avengers or the original Spider-Man, but it's right about level with Iron Man, Dark Knight, and First Avenger. 3 stars, this is the one you've been waiting for.